H-1B visas. What are they and why the uproar? That is our topic for today. Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and Podcast, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer, as cases are fact dependent. Hi, everyone. This is Mac Pierre-Louis, attorney, mediator, arbitrator, working for Florida and Texas. And today I have special guest Andy Semotiuk, who is back to talk to us about immigration topic. On this one, H-1B visas. So, Andy, how are you doing today?
Fantastic, and really glad to be with you.
Yes, sir. So, as we were preparing for this, we decided to have this discussion on H-1Bs because of some of the controversy that's going on right now in the U.S., politically speaking. And just wanted to have you come on since you do immigration law at the Pace Law Firm in Toronto, Canada, and you have a lot of experience working with different types of visas, like you had done EB-5 visas with us
Yeah.
in a talk some time ago. So today we're going to turn our attention to H-1Bs. But before we talk about that, please tell us a little bit about who you are, just so the people can know about Sandy Semotiuk. Andy
Sure.
Semotiuk.
So I'm a U.S. and Canadian immigration attorney. I'm practicing from Pace Law Firm here in Toronto. I've worked in Los Angeles for 10 years and in New York for 5 years as a U.S. immigration attorney. And I handle both U.S. and Canadian matters from the office now here in Toronto. I'm licensed in New York and California, obviously, as well as in two jurisdictions in Canada, BC, and Ontario. So that's a little bit about me.
And so, one thing I wanted to remind people about is that you are a contributor for Forbes. And so, folks who are interested in your writing should go to Forbes.com and check out some of the work that you've done over the years. Um, I think I've asked you this before, that you don't have a journalism degree, right? But you have done contribution work for the UN years ago.
Yes, yes, I was a UN correspondent for 3 years.
Yes.
And so I've been working and writing articles most of my life. And I've been a Forbes contributor for 10 years now.
Yes.
So, I write about these themes for Forbes as well as for other publications.
Yes. So we're looking forward to what you have coming up on this subject in Forbes soon. Okay, so be sure to shoot me the link and I'll blast it out.
I sure will.
Yes. All right. So let's talk about H-1B visas. So what are they? Before we get to the why the uproar, can you just give us the basic history of it in layman's terms? Because a lot of people out there, are kind of new to this because heard about H-1Bs in the news a lot. But basically, what are they? Why does it exist?
Yeah, I think maybe a little background might be helpful for just people who are not familiar with immigration. Generally, to work in the United States, you have to be either a US citizen, a permanent resident, or a non-immigrant with a work permit or work visa. The H-1B visa is one of those work visas. It is actually the workhorse for the American economy in the sense that it is catered to, or it targets people who are in the technology industry and generally people who are specialized workers. That is to say, generally it's considered appropriate for people who have at least a bachelor's degree in some specific areas, such as engineering, architecture, nursing, teaching, or whatever it might be. So that's generally the background. And what it's designed to do is fill in the gaps. It's felt that America's economy, in certain instances, has gaps, and American employers are not able to find the qualified people they need in these areas. And so they apply through the US Citizenship and Immigration Service to get permission to hire foreign workers who can fill in these gaps. So that's the basic gist of what these visas are. There are 85,000 visas allowed each year by the government. But the problem is that there are more than 85,000. For example, last year, more than 300, I think it was 360,000 people applied for these visas. So they're oversubscribed each year. There are way more people who want them than there are visas available or made available by the US government.
Got it. So, who do the visas actually belong to? From my understanding, it's the employer who's requesting the visas, right?
Right. So the employer finds or sees someone that they would like to hire and they want to offer them a job. So the process is that there's a lottery involved in issuing these visas. Unlike any of the other work visas, there's a lottery in this case because of the high demand and the shortage of numbers that are available. So the employer, having identified an employee they want to hire, files, opens a portal on the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service and indicates that at the relevant time, which is March of each year, they open this program up for the H-1B season, and the employers register with the USCIS for the lottery. That is to say, to be possibly chosen as one of the successful people or organizations that will be able to sponsor the relevant immigrant that they've identified. That's the way the system starts.
And that person who they've chosen has to satisfy at least the equivalent of a bachelor's degree.
Yes, that's right. That's the sort of cutoff point. And the visas, this 85,000 quota consists of two parts. There are 20,000 that are available for higher degrees, master's and PhD people, and then the balance are for people who have at least the equivalent of a US bachelor's degree in a specific area.
Well, there's a lot of misinformation going out there about um, who can qualify, and is it the case that people who have less than a bachelor's can get in?
What can happen is you can get the equivalent of a US bachelor's degree in an area by getting your work experience evaluated by a US organization that evaluates credentials of people who are applying for immigration purposes. And the general rule is for every 3 years of relevant, pertinent work experience, you get credited for 1 year of education. So, for example, if you're an engineer, you want to apply as an engineer for a job in the US, and there's an employer who wants you, maybe you don't have quite 4 years of US engineering, but you may have some foreign experience working in an engineering field. For every 3 years of engineering related work experience, you may be credited by an evaluator as having 1 year of the 4 years necessary to be equivalent to a US bachelor's degree in engineering, and you can qualify in that way.
What do they have to pay you? What does the employer actually have to give you just as a salary? Is there a certain benchmark?
Uh, that's the key to the whole program and what's missed in the debate.
Hmm.
There are two ways of determining what should be paid to the relevant candidate. Generally, the way is that the employer must pay the candidate what's called the prevailing wage rate for workers in that field. So the government goes around each year, the Department of Labor, and does surveys of what are the wage rates that are being paid for workers in given areas. For example, engineers in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in New York, etc. And also these wage salary determinations are categorized under 4 categories: new person, medium, experienced person, etc. And so they come up with wage rates that are, in their view, the prevailing wage rate for, let's say, an engineer who wants to work in Los Angeles. So the employer in that situation, if he wants to hire someone for, or she wants to hire someone for Los Angeles to work as an engineer, that employer has to go through a process to determine what is the prevailing wage rate as indicated by the Department of Labor. And that's online. You can go online to determine that. And that's the wage rate you have to pay. Or if you in your business pay higher wages than the prevailing wage, then you must pay the actual higher wage than the prevailing wage rate. Almost invariably, it's the prevailing wage rate that matters.
Got it. And so this might then lead to the controversy. And so from my viewpoint, what people are fighting about and what they're arguing is that, well, you see, this is unfair because there are Americans who are willing to do these jobs who should be getting paid these salaries by American companies. However, we are outsourcing American jobs to foreigners who are coming from other countries and taking them. And this obviously has lit a, firestorm because, as you know, Elon Musk and Trump and many people on the right have started, going up against each other. And like I used the word misinformation earlier because there's so much that's being thrown around that it's not actually accurate. Um, you know, for example, people will start, being very xenophobic and attacking folks and start attributing racism to a lot of this. Or people might start suggesting that Americans are being left behind and that this is a fundamentally unfair, the law that exists and it should be done away with. And this whole thing about, oh, this is the workhorse of the American economy is something that's just shielding, big tech and big corporations. So just help us make sense of it all because I don't work in big tech. I know a lot of immigrants. I'm one myself. You are one
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
And so how do you think we should understand, the controversy that's going on?
yeah. Well, I think at the very base of the controversy is a philosophical difference. There are two camps, basically. There's the tech camp coming primarily out of California, and Elon Musk is the leading spokesman of that camp, who see the need for foreign workers to help and add capacity to the U.S. economy. These are primarily high-tech people in the computer areas. And they see that in order for the US economy to be competitive, it's necessary for the economy, for the country, to bring in this high talent to work in these technological fields or these other professional fields to make a go of it on a competitive base with the world out there. That's one view. And the other view expressed, one of the key ones is Steve Bannon, has been very critical of the H-1B program. He has stated outright that he feels it should be canceled and that these jobs should be given to American workers. And why are we recruiting foreign workers and essentially giving the technology industry the capacity to pay lower salaries to these foreign workers and abuse their their rights in order to make more money when American workers should be recruited and be given the chance to work in the field. Um, I guess as far as deciding where we stand or what your view is, I guess a key thing would be whether you consider America sufficiently talented in terms of finding the relevant people to fill these jobs or not, whether we have enough workers, and whether the assertion that we need foreign workers to come to the United States to fill these jobs that are not fillable by American workers, whether that's true or not, I think is a key determinant as to how you might see this debate. But in essence, it's said that there's kind of a split in the MAGA community, the Republican MAGA, Make America Great again, community with the blue collar, shall we say, Rust Belt type individuals who have supported Trump and who are anti-immigrant and feel that immigration needs to be cut back drastically, and that all these jobs, which they view as kind of like pearls or diamonds that are being made available to foreigners, should be made available to local American workers. That's the view from that side. These are primarily, for the most part, Trump supporters, and therefore on the right side of things politically. But then there's this other camp under the same Republican tent, and again under MAGA, under the MAGA tent, who are arguing, look, we're supporting Trump. We supported Trump because we saw Trump as someone who's into business, wants to promote business. He himself uses H-1B workers. He thinks and he's declared that he supports the H-1B program because it's helped him in his industry, in his fields, wherever he's been working. So there's that group that sees the H-1B visa as a kind of lubricant that will help the economy go forward. I would say that's the way that the field looks at the moment.
So thank you for that. So what are your thoughts on some of the positions people have taken? For example, people have said that this is exploitive of foreigners, foreign workers coming, and some of them are not being paid what they should be paid. And when they start working these jobs, they kind of keep their, head down, they keep their mouth shut, if they're gonna be going through any kind of abuse and not gonna say anything because they fear that their visa might be taken away. Is there any kind of truth to that?
There is a bit of truth to that in this sense. I'm not sure about how well an employer can underpay a foreign worker, because I told you, look, to get an H-1B visa, you got to go through 5 steps. 5 steps. Number one, you have to go to get the lottery. You got to win the lottery. Number two, that is the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service lottery. Number two, you got to go to the Department of Labor and get their permission to hire this foreign worker. And to get the permission, you have to show the Department of Labor that you're paying the prevailing wage rate in the United States for workers. Not lower, but the prevailing wage rate. So, I mean, how can you say you're underpaying them if you have to prove the prevailing wage rate? And you also have to show that there are no employment lockouts, troubles of any kind in the work area where the person is going to work. Number three, you then have to apply, assuming you get the approval from the Department of Labor, you have to apply to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service by way of a petition to get permission to employ this worker. Then number four, you have to apply through the Department of State overseas at the consulate to get approval from the consulate and get the H-1B visa pasted into the passport. And number five, the worker has to come into the United States and satisfy the U.S. Citizenship and Customs and Border Protection officers at the airport that he satisfies the requirement in order to enter the United States. That's a lot of satisfying of U.S. government officials in order to get one visa to work for 3 years or a maximum up to 6 years. That's the problem with it. It's expensive and hard. But to more directly answer your question, the key area where people are somewhat exploited is the desire to become a permanent resident is attached to this train. And you have to adjust your status from H-1B visa to green card holder. And that process requires you to stick to this employer who's giving you the visa in order to be lawfully in the United States until you are granted permission to stay in the United States permanently. And that can be many years. You can be stuck with an employer, working for someone maybe you're not happy with while you're waiting for the day when you get a green card. That's where there's a bit of exploitation, in my opinion.
Got it. So when we talk about the prevailing wage rate, isn't it the case where the employer could sure pay you the going rate, but get you in at maybe at a educational level that's low enough to where the prevailing wage rate might be lower for your level? And it's not, and that in a way could undercut other people like Americans who would just demand more pay. And isn't that, I guess, the backdoor way of employers potentially kind of grifting the system? And because I think that's what I've heard about there being a controversy
Yeah,
when it comes to big tech and just big corporations seeing
yeah,
the
yeah.
benefit to their bottom line.
Yeah, you've identified another area where there can be and probably may be some corruption in terms of how the system should be working. Uh, Look, uh, people want to, I guess employers want to make money and get away with what they can within proper legal channels, but they may look, when you pay taxes, do you count your taxes in a way that's beneficial to you or to the government? It's the same thing here. You try to present your case in a way that's most beneficial to you. So you may underestimate what this employee should be given by underestimating his quality. Maybe he is someone who deserves the highest wage rate, but is going to be paid only a minimum or medium wage rate under the categories that they have. So enforcement, Department of Labor enforcement of the prevailing wage requirements is where the system may not be quite in tune with what is required and what is the reality. So that's where there can be some sort of misalignment.
Got it. Thank you so much. Well, let's start wrapping up. So, what are some takeaways you want people to remember from all of this?
Well, I think one thing that appears to me to be senseless is why have a work visa that's capped at 85,000 when there's 300,000 trying to apply? And these people who are applying, they have got employers who want to hire them. It's not like they want to come in, but there's employers out there who want to hire them. So the question is that program cap, does that cap make sense? Now, there's some areas of the work, some areas of work that are not capped. For example, research or people working with universities and stuff like that, where you can get an H-1B visa without going through the lottery. But the lottery doesn't make sense. It's overly burdensome. In general, I would say this: if you're going to hire a foreign worker, don't go through 5 levels of approval to hire a foreign worker. It's hard enough to hire a foreign worker. You got to pay the guy to come. You got to arrange for the person to come. You got to find a foreign worker. Those are all already obstacles to hiring a foreign worker that make it more difficult than to hire a local worker. It would just seem that the economy would likely be better served by local workers in situations like that than to go out across the globe looking for someone. There's a natural reason for people to hire locally is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well,
So
go ahead.
yeah. So look, what we want is for the economy to work as best as possible and for Americans to prosper, not just for some people to prosper to make money because they're exploiting foreign workers, but for everybody to prosper, for Americans to prosper, for the employers to prosper, and for these workers, if they are foreign workers, to also benefit by being in tune with the American economy and helping the economy grow. It's a fact that immigrants are a large part of American entrepreneurship and development. Musk himself is someone who came through the H-1B visa. And many, many of the H-1B visa holders have later started multi-million-dollar companies in America. So
Yeah.
be careful
Oh,
not to shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, no, good point. Although I heard that Musk had come in originally through a TN visa, which is the Canadian visa to let you come from Canada to the
Actually, you're
US.
right about that because he's a Canadian. He could come in under the free trade agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but the point still is though, you have a foreigner coming to the US creating lots of jobs, right? And
yeah,
benefiting the US economy big time. And do we really want to do away with that? At the same time, you have a lot of Americans who are concerned that, look, things are expensive, life is hard, sometimes jobs might be scarce, and is it a good look to be going overseas and bringing other people in?
yeah.
And I guess the answer to that question is I don't know. I don't really know if there are jobs out there that Americans can and are willing and are able to do, but just need to be filled by others. I'm not completely sure what the answer is.
For what it's worth, and this is just an opinion, uh, I think it's critical for America to hire foreign workers for the main reason you just said earlier, which is they are responsible for the boost to the economy and getting new jobs in and hiring new people. There's studies that show immigrants, for every immigrant that comes in, like on a legitimate work visa, there are multiple jobs that are created. It's not like they're a drag on the economy. Quite to the contrary, they're actually a boost to the economy. So from
Got it.
that point of view, I think they're needed.
Okay, Andy Semotiuk, thank you so much for this delightful conversation on H-1B visas. And I did catch myself because I kept saying HB1 for some reason by accident. I don't know why. I'm not the only one, but I'm just admitting that I've made that mistake. But this was very educational, and that's the purpose of the LMI podcast is to educate lawyers, mediators, and everyday people on these things that are sometimes a little fuzzy. All right, everyone. Until next time, take care and come back to the podcast and happy 2025.